Howdy, folks, and welcome to the podcast Iron. My name is Laura Mullen-Vermilia, and on this podcast, I interview members of the cast iron art community in order to inspire, educate, and spread ideas about iron casting and cast iron art. In today's episode, our guest is Tom Fox. Tom is a sculptor, educator, and fabricator who is working and making art in San Diego, California, and he is currently the president of the Western Cast Iron Art Alliance. And I'm sure if you've been listening to previous episodes of this podcast, you know that the Western Conference is going to be hosted by Tom and the rest of the Western board, and that's right around the corner at the end of October in San Diego, California. Now, obviously, we're going to get some inside details about this upcoming conference during the interview, but also Tom recounts for us his life path so far and how he found himself on this artistic journey. He also details for us how his body of work progressed throughout the years. Now, just quickly before we get into the interview, I have to mention our wonderful sponsors. Firstly, the Podcast Iron Show is sponsored in part by individual supporters on Patreon. And yep, that's about 20 to 25 of our friends and colleagues in the cast iron art community. So thank you to everyone who has personally joined as a Patreon member to help me afford the production costs of keeping this show going. And I'd also like to thank today's top supporters of this show, which are the Western Cast Iron Art Alliance, the Mid-South Sculpture Alliance, Sloss Metal Arts, and the National Ornamental Metal Museum. These fantastic organizations provide a large portion of the funding that's keeping my ability to produce these episodes afloat. And so I just want to take a few moments to introduce them to you and let you know about their upcoming events and opportunities. So the Western Cast Iron Art Alliance is an organization that gears their efforts for iron casting artists in the western states of the U.S. Their organization's goals are to educate, demonstrate, and exhibit cast iron art in the western region of the U.S. And one of the ways that they accomplish this goal is by hosting a conference every 2 years. And it's a very exciting time because the conference is actually happening next month. So this upcoming Western Conference will be held in the San Diego, California area, and the official dates are Wednesday, October 30th through Saturday, November 3rd. And so get that on your calendar. Start reaching out to friends about carpooling or travel plans if you haven't already, and look into their local hotels or going in on an Airbnb with your favorite crew. And I always have to point out that you don't have to live in the western states of the U.S. to attend the Western Conference. You can live anywhere, and they just happen to hold their conferences in the West. So you should definitely make the trip. They'll love to have you, and I'll be there, so I'll see you as well. And this is just a quick spoiler because Tom and I talk more in depth about the conference during his interview, but it looks like the carnival event will take place again. So this conference, you can get your fix on bathtub rides. And of course, there will be a performance pour night, a production pour, as well as exhibition panels, demos, and networking. So you can find out all of the information on the WCIAA.org website. But all the workshops that will be held are the bonded sand mold workshop, ceramic shell workshop, the foundry tong making workshop, which is actually full right now, and the tiny iron workshop, which is also full. And there are still some slots in the reactionary mold workshop. So slots are all limited. And like I said already, some of them are even full. So get your conference registration if you want to sign up for a workshop, like get to it. And I also want to report that the conference registration is a little bit less expensive if you register online than it would be to register on site during the beginning of the conference. So it's better to just reserve your spot today and save a little cash. For more information about this fantastic organization and to register for the conference, visit their website, like I already said, which is WCIAA.org. And you can also email WCIAA@hotmail.com with any questions that you might have about the conference or if you want to be added to the conference mailing list. So thank you to the Western Cast Iron Art Alliance and their board members for the support of this podcast, as well as iron casting artists in the western region of the U.S. The Mid-South Sculpture Alliance is a nonprofit arts organization that advances the creation and awareness of sculpture and sculptors. MSA creates opportunities for its members through exhibition, education, and networking opportunities centered on traditional and contemporary approaches to sculpture. So attention, all sculptors and sculpture enthusiasts, because the Mid-South Sculpture Alliance invites you to their 2024 conference with the theme of Shaping Perspectives, which will take place in Birmingham, Alabama from November 6th through the 9th, which is the weekend after the Western Conference. So you can go to both. Or if you unfortunately can't get to the Western because you're more on the East, Birmingham isn't the East, but if it's like you're more on the eastern side of the US, it may be more feasible for you to go to this conference. So join them for an exciting series of events spread across the city of Birmingham, which will include demos, exhibitions, studio tours with local sculptors, performances at the historic Sloss Furnaces site, and a prestigious Masters Award dinner honoring Tony Bingham at the Birmingham Museum of Art. The conference will be packed with valuable insights and learning opportunities featuring demonstrations by industry professionals, hands-on workshops, panel discussions, and lectures from renowned artists Vanessa German, George Ferrandi, and Jiha Moon. Plus, student registration is only $30, so if you're an educator, please don't miss this chance to bring the next generation of artists with you to the event. You can see the full schedule of events and register now at midsouthsculpture.org, but also follow them on Instagram at midsouthsculpture. Looking forward to seeing you in Birmingham for the event, and I give a big thank you to the Mid-South Sculpture Alliance for their support of this episode, as well as their support for sculptors by providing networking, education, and exhibition opportunities. And while we're all talking about Birmingham, Alabama, Sloss Metal Arts is a national center for iron casting and metal art that's based in Birmingham, Alabama, at the National Historic Sloss Furnaces Landmark. They host our national conference on contemporary cast iron art and practices every 2 years, and the next one will be in April of 2025. So you're going to want to follow Sloss Metal Arts and NCCCIAP on Instagram to keep up to date on all things Sloss related and conference related. But I'm super excited to announce that the calls for the 2025 conference are now open, and that's to apply if you want to bring a guest furnace or if you want to participate in the student cupola competition. But these calls also include applications if you want to do a performance at the conference or lead a workshop or a demo, if you have a panel or presentation idea that you would like to facilitate. So on the NCCCIAP website, all of the information is available for each call, and the information for how to apply is there as well. So the due date for all of these calls is actually going to be on Thursday, October 31st. So also start thinking about what pieces you want to enter into the upcoming exhibition, because you know that call will be coming too. So seriously, go to nccciap.com to check out all of these opportunities. And while you're there, sign up to be on the email list, so that way the information will be sent directly to your email inbox. So let's all help make this next conference in the spring of 2025 be the biggest and best Sloss yet. Thank you, Sloss Metal Arts, for your support of this podcast and also for hosting us at your site for the national conference. The National Ornamental Metal Museum, located in the heart of Memphis, Tennessee, is the only museum of its kind dedicated to preserving, promoting, and advancing the art and craft of metalwork. The Metal Museum offers a unique experience with a rich exhibition schedule, a growing permanent collection, an on-site blacksmith shop and foundry, and education and outreach programming. From demos and classes to master workshops and 2-year apprenticeships, this museum offers vast opportunities for all skill levels. The museum hosts their Fire Casting Conference at the end of May every year, and it's open to students as well as emerging and advancing artists. So if that sounds like something that you'd be interested in attending next year, reserve the last weekend in May on your calendar for it. Additionally, the Metal Museum's exhibition calendar is currently in a season of focus on casting. They started in February with the exhibition Branching Out, which explored the fascinating ways that mentors, students, and foundries share knowledge in paths of growth resembling a family tree. That exhibition sadly just closed a few days ago, but upcoming later this month, immerse yourself in the works of master metalsmith Preston Jackson. His exhibition, titled A Hidden Culture, critiques today's society through a methodologized Civil War era American South. And if you don't know what the Master Metalsmith is, that's a title given to a different metal artist each year to celebrate their career and their body of work in conjunction with the Metal Museum's Repair Days event that is held every October. So this year, the festivities for Repair Days will take place from Thursday, October 17th through Saturday, October 20th. And community members from all over will bring metal items to the museum to have them restored, reshaped, retinned, or whatever else needs to be done to have them brought back to life. Expert metalsmiths from across the country will travel to Memphis to perform the repairs, and all of the funds that are raised during this weekend will help support the museum's annual programming, like new exhibitions, the apprenticeship program, and their after-school program called Forging the Future. And casters, even iron casters, are considered metalsmiths at this event. So if you're interested in participating as a volunteer to help fix things, or if you're interested in having any of your metal objects fixed and repaired, visit their website, which is metalmuseum.org, to learn more information. And also follow them on Instagram at Metal Museum, because they post about their events regularly, and it's a great way to stay up to date with what they've got going on. Thank you so much to the Metal Museum for supporting today's episode, as well as preserving and promoting all metal artists. So finally, let's get into this conversation. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and please enjoy. Well, Tom Fox, thank you so much. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for interviewing me. I appreciate it.
Well, I think it's about time, because, I mean, you are definitely on, I have a list, like I have a running list, and you've been on the list for a long time, because when I first started, I was, all the people that I'm comfortable with and I know were kind of like, I don't want to say easy targets, but I felt like I had an opening, like, oh, I've met you at this, I've met you at that event. Can I interview you? And so
I was going to say, I think we tried this in Granite City,
oh
something like this anyway.
oh my gosh, you're right.
Yeah.
I didn't forget about that, but I didn't make that connection. So yeah, I guess we should so it was right when I started the YouTube channel.
I believe so. Yeah, you have been doing the cast iron gypsy for a little
Yeah.
while, and I
Yeah.
think that's why you were in Granite City.
Yeah.
The cast iron gypsy.
Yeah. And so yeah, so I guess I can fill out the story for the people that are watching and listening. So I started the Cast Iron Gypsy YouTube channel to kind of document my life as I'm going through iron casting and art making, and then like going to these iron pours, because I felt like nobody on YouTube was really vlogging and like documenting these iron pours. And so that was pretty early on, because I think I started in 2018, and
Yep.
I think the Western was in 2019 or something. And so I went and I, like, quote, covered the conference, and Tom, being the president of the Western board, we did an interview, but I didn't have any microphones. Like, the camera that I had was really low quality.
Yeah, we had
And
a really dark space.
yep, no lights. And I think there was something with the air, like the air conditioning was blowing, and so
Yeah,
I interviewed Tom, and I tried to like have an interview that I could put into the conference video of me covering the conference, and it kind of it didn't go well. Like, I think the interview went well,
yeah,
but my capturing of the interview didn't go well, which is really funny, because then now, how many years later, here I am
yeah.
doing
Well,
this. Like,
I
we really have no way of knowing what lays ahead in the future.
that's right.
Wild.
And I think the cast iron gypsy episode that came from that was excellent. And
Thank
for all
you.
y'all listening, you need to go check out all those cast iron gypsy videos. They're all really good. Good music, good imagery. punctuated with commentary from the participants. You do a really good job on that stuff.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
So that means a lot because, sometimes it's when we make our work, me making these videos, but just any work in general, sometimes it's so insular, and then I put it out and then I go work my day job,
Yeah.
and like
Right.
maybe I get a message or something, or somebody will say, like, send me a message and say, "Oh, I really enjoyed that you did well." But yeah, sometimes you don't know where things are going once you put them out. So, well,
Yeah.
thank you. That means a lot. And I have footage from the last Western, and I'm hoping to put together that sometime before this next upcoming one.
Yeah. Well, I imagine the editing is twice the time of the interview or even more.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a lot. And also it piles up like anything that we're passionate about that we do on the side of a day
mhm.
job, the footage like just keeps piling and piling and piling, and there's all these different events, but I got to prioritize it. It's time, and I know
Yeah,
that.
you'll get it worked out.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I've spent the first couple of minutes of your interview talking about me, and I kind of apologize for that.
Oh, that's good background for everybody.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. All right. Well, so let's see. But that's a good kind of place to start. The first time I met you in person was so it was 2019, I think
2018.
2018, but it was in the
Yeah, right.
fall of 2018. Now you probably would have been in Hayes, Kansas for the 2012 Western,
I
I
was.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was.
But I was young and running around with,
Yeah, there was a lot of wide open space there too.
yeah.
So it was a great conference.
Yeah, it was. But this next one is going to be great too. So yeah, so let's get into your interview. So, well, Tom Fox, who the hell are you anyways?
Well, I'm an art maker. I consider myself a material smith. Cast iron is, one of the materials that I use, and some of the materials I use are incidental to mold making and the kind of molds that we make for casting iron or casting metal. And so that's how I like try to identify myself as an art maker and an educator. I'm not teaching currently, but I've taught in a bunch of community colleges in San Diego State here in the San Diego area. I enjoy doing that. I had my own shop for a while, so I do some freelance work, design work, and fabrication work. Yeah, and then I'm a dude who has a house and responsibilities at the house, keeping the landscape up and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And I work at a local community college where we're going to hold a conference as the technician in the sculpture area. So that's a really good gig too. So between making art and trying to shop it around for exhibition um, and a full time job, that's a full week every week. As I'm sure you do the same thing. The jobs are different, but you're trying to get your work into exhibitions. You got to make it to get it in those exhibitions. So, yeah, it's a full time job that I think people outside the making community maybe not appreciate, um, you know, as far flung as it can be.
I really want to start talking about the Western Conference so bad. Like I just want to jump to it for sure. But I also want to know a little bit more about you and maybe your childhood. And so, do you have any events or happenings that or things that you were exposed to in your early years that you feel like played a big impact on who you've become today as a person or as an artist?
Well, I think as an artist, I was lucky enough to have a grandmother who was really creative, and June Fagan. She was an ace welder and like a Rosie the Riveter type of personality. And so when I was a kid, I remember like some of the furthest back memories are of this stainless steel tray that she built at work and brought home, and she screwed it to the wall and put a little radio on it. And that thing was made out of fabricated stainless sheet. And those edges had been sheared off by some shear, and they were so sharp. They just were freaking out when they walked in the kitchen, and I was holding on to this thing.
Yeah.
But I do remember that. I don't remember the weld quality because I wasn't dialed into that at that point.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was top notch. So she did a lot of home crafting. Her and one of my aunts, one of her sisters, had a little slip casting ceramic studio in their basement. So I remember as a kid going over there making slip cast ceramic pieces, loading the kiln, unloading the kiln, glazing, and all that stuff. So it was really, really kind of cool. And I was fortunate to have that experience.
Everything related to the ceramic practice was at home.
Yeah,
at their home.
Yeah, right. And that kind of led me into ceramics later on. So that was one thing as an artist. But I had these uncles that were these gearheads, and they were always messing around with motors and cars. And so I was kind of drawn into the smell of nitromethane and burning rubber, and at an early age. And so one of my uncles was a pretty stellar draftsman, and he used to draw all these cartoons, kind of like the Ed Roth cartoons of Rat Fink and that kind of thing, with the monsters driving these crazy, cars that were super exaggerated. So I remember being inspired by that and just his ability to draw. So when I was young, I was drawing all the time, and I was playing with Play-Doh, making three-dimensional stuff. So early on, that was what was happening. And this was all happening in the city of Chicago, where I was born, the oldest of 6 siblings. And something about being the oldest, there's probably a bunch of your listeners that are the oldest. I always was told that I was the oldest and I should have known better, but I don't understand how that ever worked. I was like, I didn't have any experience doing whatever it might have been. But I remember my folks always saying, well, you're the oldest, you should have known better.
And as the oldest, so I also am the oldest, but just I have, one younger brother, but it is kind of an interesting place to be, because it's like, well, how was I supposed to have known better? Because I didn't have anybody showing me the way or what was appropriate.
Yeah.
I'm the, I don't know, the breaking ground. That might not be the right analogy for it, but it's like, I'm your first go at this, you guys. Like,
yeah, you should know better.
Yeah. So, but that's the thing. I mean, I don't have children, but it's like everybody's trying to figure out wherever you are, whatever role you're in,
Yeah, I thought I was like they also said I was the built-in babysitter. So my mom would need to go do whatever, and I was there. So I was automatically the babysitter. I don't recall ever getting any kind of extra special treatment for those skill sets. In fact, I think that was my first experience in living in a world where your skill sets are exploited. And
yeah, I think you're probably right.
maybe it put a chip on my shoulder or something.
Yeah, right out the gate. I mean, yeah, who's to say? Yeah, because it's amazing how these things, when you actually think about it, you're like, oh yeah, that is the first probably exploitation of your labor.
Yeah.
From your parents. But water under the bridge.
That's right. Yeah. No.
And so then did any of your artistic tendencies kind of seep into school?
Yeah, I remember. In fact, I have them when I was younger, like in first and second grade. My teachers would send home a note saying how creative I was, and that kind of thing. And I have all these certificates that my art teachers would fill out. On the they used to have these mimeograph machines that were like I don't know exactly how they work, but you put a negative or positive on this drum, and you load a bunch of paper and you crank this handle, and it copies those things. And there was some kind of acetone or some kind of solvent that was involved in that process. And I remember the smell of those papers. But yeah, that that was some of the stuff that I would draw, and then they would make copies of it and run off a bunch of copies of the drawings that I would do. Some of my teachers. So yeah, and yeah, so I, they all the folks I had, if they were art teachers or just math or whatever, they recognized that I had some kind of either desire or talent, the world of art making.
Did your
And it was
parents,
good reinforcement. Yeah, my
I
folks
was
did
going to
too.
say, did they support your artistic tendencies?
Yeah, yeah. To
Yeah.
the extent they could, they were, all about it. So it was good. And the rest of my family, we're pretty close, my aunts and uncles and several of them. So they were all aware of it. And yeah, and I've had the opportunity to thank them for their inspiration. I'm
Yeah.
getting older, they're getting older and slowly finding their way out of here. And
Hmm.
so I'm thankful that I had a chance to talk to them.
Yeah. It's a gift to be able to thank people that helped you along the
Yeah.
way and encouraged you. It really is.
Mhm.
So, did these artistic tendencies then go transfer into high school?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I started high school, and I think I had a ceramics class every semester for the entire time I was there. They didn't have sculpture, but the guy who was doing ceramics was a sculptor. He went to Southern Illinois University, I think in Carbondale. I think they have a ceramics program at both, I believe.
They
But
do, and both of them are pretty noteworthy.
yeah,
If
yeah.
I
So
if
he,
I can chime in about that, yeah.
yeah, he was an interesting guy, and he had this idea that it takes courage to move into the third dimension, and that some people don't have it. And he encouraged me to go that way. I was just making like hinge pots and stuff like that beforehand. So he showed me how to throw pots, and I just kind of went crazy, and we're combining hand built and thrown, pieces, and so they were like assemblages and stuff like that, and normal pots that you throw just to get your chops, and so yeah, I had a great time. I took a bunch of drawing classes and was very successful there too. And those folks that Tom Barron was the ceramics guy, and Reamer North was my drawing instructor, and Ron North was my driver's ed instructor. And
Okay.
so Ron and Ann got married, and every once in a while they come to San Diego. And I was able to intercept them one day down on the boardwalk. I was looking on Facebook, and she said, "Oh, we're in San Diego." So I hopped on my bike and I rode down to the beach, and I was riding on the sidewalk, and Ron is in a wheelchair, and he's got this head of white hair that it's like blazing white.
Yeah.
So I was riding on the boardwalk, and I'm looking ahead of about a
Yep.
block ahead, and I see that head uh, in the crowd, and I rode up and I kind of surprised him, and I don't think he knew who I was right off the bat, but
Hmm.
Ann knew who I was. So it was great, and I've visited with them a couple times between then and now, and really nice to talk to him. Ron, if you don't mind, I'll tell a little story about Ron.
Absolutely. I'd love that. Yeah.
He went to Purdue University. He
Oh, yeah.
then, when he graduated from Purdue, he was a player for the Chicago Bears, and then he went on to teach high school, and he was the football coach, and I think he was a wrestling coach. Um, he accidentally broke one of my buddy's legs and showing him a move in wrestling. he, when I saw him, that was the first thing he talked about. He's like, I felt so bad about it. And
I
I'm like,
bet he did.
dude, it's like 45 years later, but he still felt bad about
Of
it.
course. Yeah.
Um, but he was my driver's ed instructor. So the three of us, there's three students and him in the car. He
Yeah.
loved listening to rock music, so we listened to the Doobie Brothers, and we just cruise around the area for an hour.
Yeah.
When you come back into the parking lot at this high school I went to, the cafeteria had this big patio, and you
Okay.
come outside and sit on the patio, and it was like right in front of the school, and that's where all the cars came into the parking lot.
Okay.
Driver's ed cars too. So our driver's ed driving period ended about midway through lunch. So
Okay.
what would happen? There were like four lunch rotations.
Yeah.
So Ron had he didn't have a steering wheel, but he had a brake pedal on his side.
Right. Yeah.
So as we're driving in every single day that we had this class, we'd drive into the parking lot and he'd slam on the brakes and then he'd let off and then we would go and he'd slam on the brakes. So we would like jerk our way into the parking spot. And, me and the other kids, it was embarrassing, of course.
Yeah.
And everybody knew we had Ron North as our driver's ed
Yeah.
instructor when he went in like that. It was,
Because everybody at lunch was watching.
yeah, they were all out there, and we got out, out of the car. But
You'd be like,
yeah,
don't look, it wasn't us. We know how to
funny,
break. That is
yeah,
good.
funny story about Ron North that deserves
Yeah.
to be on the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's good to have a little bit of a sense of humor like that.
Yeah,
Like, I'll show these kids how to
yeah,
be embarrassed.
right, and
Life skills,
yeah,
how do you
that's right.
handle with embarrassment?
You asked if there was some inspiration that I had as a person, and I think it was, Ron, and very, interesting character,
Yeah.
honest guy, worked hard, all the things that you would want to be exposed to as a young person. He was exemplified all of them.
I mean, and sounds like really well-rounded too
Yeah,
from his life experiences. So,
yeah. And his wife, my former drawing instructor, she was the same thing.
yeah.
It was naturally going to happen. Those two were going to run into each other.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So then after high school, where did the path lead you?
At the end of my senior year, I graduated early, so I was out like in 3.5 years or something.
Okay.
I had this guidance counselor, is what they called them in our school, and
Yeah.
he knew that I had a penchant for art making, and he pleaded with me not to go into art. He's like, "Don't do it, man. Don't do it. There's no money in art." And I thought, man, later on, I thought, wow, I could have been an instructor at the age of 25 or 30 and had a full career doing that, because I didn't start my serious academic career until I was about 40 years old. So
Okay.
I
In
had a,
art, you didn't start your
right,
academic art.
right,
Well, that's
big
another
gap.
like water under the bridge. He was
Yeah,
doing the best. He was doing by you the best he thought he
that's
could.
right. Yeah.
So you,
So I suppressed what I call the inevasible impulse to make. And
mhm.
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Anybody who's a maker knows that you got to do it. And if you don't do it, something is going to make you do it. There's just, you can only hold it in for so long. So, yeah, I worked a bunch of different jobs. I worked at the University of California running a isotope lab, and I got interested in physics. And we distributed radioactive material to different labs on campus. And so we received it, did all the checks to make sure everything was safe, and then distributed it to the research population. So that was a really cool job. I did that for a while, and I was exposed to the craft center at UCSD, where they did have this little post and lintel building that was slowly constructed like a cell. It was starting to grow out from the middle and out into different parts of that part of campus. There was a small gallery, and I started to get more interested in getting my artistic side uh, out from under the rock that it had been hidden under for a while. So that was kind of where that all started after high school, and this is 20 years after high school. So yeah, in that 20-year period, it was just working and playing baseball, playing softball, and cycling and that kind of stuff. Going to a lot of concerts,
Yeah.
Zeppelin, ZZ Top, and yeah, I love classic rock, and I love country music and jazz. And it's really kind of important for that to be part of what my creative experience is at
Yeah.
any given time. If I'm making something, I need to have that music involved in it.
So it sounds like you were living life. You were enjoying it. You were
Yeah,
enjoying
I
life.
was. I was.
But
Yeah.
then what happened?
Well, yeah, I needed to, like I said, I got exposed to the craft center and I
Okay.
started making these ceramic pieces.
So
And
it was the craft center.
that's right. Yeah, I was taking classes there and then I started working there. But
Okay.
earlier on when I was taking classes, that was about the time that I met my wife, which was about 1989.
Yeah.
And then we got married the following year, 1990. And she's always very supportive of my endeavors to, you know, uh, restart my artistic career, I guess, or start an artistic career. And
Mhm.
so I did that, and it was kind of like underground work. The craft center, even though it's affiliated with UCSD, it's not like part of their academics. It's more of like a student diversion uh,
Hmm.
activities. You know, they had ceramics, they had glass blowing, they had you know, stained glass, guitar playing,
Hmm.
all different kinds of making. So
Do
there
you
was
think
something there for
just
everybody.
like a little quick aside, we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but do you think that it was because it was crafts? Like, was
Yeah,
there an art department that was like sculpture, printmaking, draw,
yeah,
like painting?
they did have a visual arts department where they issued bachelor's and master's
Okay.
degrees. Yeah, and
But
the
then the
craft center.
ceramics was on the side.
Yeah, but I think their visual art program at the time was heavily conceptual. So,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
was really kind of leading into more art made with or by computers. So
Oh,
there was a lot more emphasis on, digital
okay.
technology in the arts.
Yeah. And that
There.
makes sense in the early 90s. That's when things started to shift.
Mhm.
And anyways, I don't want to spend too much, but it is something like as a, traditionally trained or academically trained jeweler and metalsmith,
Yeah,
there's always that divide. And I
right.
am it's so it was just interesting that you were talking about how it was kind of like a student diversion.
Yeah, well, and I think too, I never thought much about the divide
Of
until
course.
I got
Yeah.
into academics. As far as I was concerned, if it's a piece of craft art, it's a piece of craft art. If it's a piece of sculpture, it's a sculpture. And
Art. Yeah.
a lot of people don't draw the division, but I mean, I understand where it is now. But
Yeah. And
I would, I would,
I think nowadays it's a lot like the division is a lot less.
yeah, it's
And then
important.
also sculpture, like fine art, will also be material based in the same way that a craft art is could be material based or could be concept, and that's not really what this interview is about, but it just kind of piqued my
Yeah,
attention for a second.
I guess I
And
think of it more about the occupancy of space. That's kind of
yeah, yeah,
where I'm at on the whole thing. And
yeah. I like that.
none better than the other. They're just different.
Yeah.
And it's great subject matter for debate, but
Yeah. Yeah.
there's no gains in that debate as
Kind
far
of
as
no. Unless you're in a on a personal journey of self-discovery and trying to, you know,
yeah.
figure out your own reasons for your artistic practice choices. But anyway, that's what that's not not here or there. It's, So anyway, so you decided to embark on a new
Yeah.
career.
Yeah, I got a couple scholarships from the UCSD Staff Association. So I started to take classes at the community college, and just followed the program they had set up for, getting an associate's degree. And I got 3 associate's degrees because I couldn't decide where I wanted to go. So I just kept taking classes. And then I wound up going to San Diego State for my undergrad work, and that's where I met Toby and several other people. He was an undergrad with me, and
Yeah.
that's kind of right when that was 1999
Okay.
when
Yeah.
I transferred there, and he had his first son uh, just before we met,
Yeah.
and and the year 2000 was my first exposure to an iron pour. And yeah, so that was where I met a bunch of other people who I still am, great friends with. At least that's what I think.
Yeah.
Um, and they're all going to be at the conference, and some of them are part of the Western board. Um, yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah. So it all really started in 1999 with this guy named Jerry Dumlau. And Jerry was a student of Julius Schmidt's. Julius was teaching at Cranbrook, so Jerry would always tell us these stories about Julius and then pouring iron. And they did a big iron pour on the National Mall, and they had all this mold waste and everything, and nobody knew what to do with it. And Jerry says, Julius told us all to get a shovel and dig a hole. And so there's some part of the mall that has a bunch of mold waste buried buried
Yeah.
in it. So yeah, we and he was really I think an important figure in Toby's artistic direction as
Yeah.
well. And yeah, that was kind of like when things started to happen. And I knew when I was back at school and taking classes that this is what I was going to do for in some form or another for the rest of my life. And I had wasted some time, suppressing the inevasible impulse to make. And
Yeah.
but the cork was out of the bottle now.
Love it.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Yeah. So what was the first iron pour? Was it in
Oh,
California? What
it
was?
was at Arizona State.
Oh,
It was Ted Duran. It was Ted's graduate show, I think, for him to get his MFA.
okay.
Yeah, so we went there, and of course, Mary Neubauer was running the show,
Uh-huh.
and there were several students that studied with Ted that we see every once in a while. That he was surrounded by a great crew of people in his grad program,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, I was looking at that thinking, well, I hope when I go to graduate school, I get I get timed in with people who are as interesting as these folks at ASU.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my first exposure, and then I think we went every April for the next several years. We went to ASU and poured molds, and took part in the setup and breakdown and all that kind of stuff. So it was nice to. And then we started branching out and going different places. And I think when I talked to you the other day, we were talking about the distance between San Diego and the rest of the nation.
Yeah.
And San Diego is not a place that commerce goes through unless it's coming from Mexico. So yeah, it was tough for us to go places because everything was a distance.
Mm-hmm.
We were students; we didn't have a lot of money
Yeah.
and stuff. But yeah, we Toby, I think it was 2001, went to graduate school at Southern Illinois in Carbondale.
Yeah.
I went down and visited him a few times, and I thought the same thing about the folks he was in grad school with.
Yeah.
Because
He
they were
had
all,
a good lot with him as
yeah,
well, I think. Yeah.
yeah, they were awesome. I love going down there. We had so much fun sitting in the shop shooting firecrackers or bottle rockets at each other, and
Yeah. Oh
yeah,
man.
among other things. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, before Toby went to grad school, I think he introduced me, or maybe it was while he was in grad school, to Dave Lobdell at
Mm-hmm.
Iron Tribe back in, I think it was like 2001 was the first Iron Tribe that I went to.
Okay.
I think we went to every one for I don't know how many years. I haven't been to every one in the past 6 or 7 years, but
Yeah.
uh, I try to make it. That's just there's a vibe about New Mexico that I don't know if anybody believes in the power of place, but I do, and it's because of my time in New Mexico. When I roll in and I get across the border, it seems weird, but I just feel a little different vibe while I'm there.
I believe you. No, I felt it. I felt it too. It was wild. So this past I mean, you obviously know I was there because we
Mhm.
talked when I was there, but yeah, I'd never been, especially as somebody from New England.
Hmm.
I'd never really been to the Southwest. I mean, my parents, when I was a child, they brought us to the Grand Canyon, but I
Hmm.
was really too young to, I think, absorb. I mean, it was an important trip, but it was
Yeah,
more like a family bonding trip that I happened to see the Grand Canyon. But I don't remember. Like, it definitely probably didn't hit me as much as it hit my parents, as
yeah,
adults. But yeah, so I um kind of on a whim just decided to go this year.
yeah.
Or well, I guess it was last year, 2023.
Hmm.
But yeah, there's something about driving through because I had to drive from Albuquerque to Las Vegas, New Mexico.
Yeah.
It's like a completely different yeah. There's
Interstate
something
25.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's something like driving through the mountains and seeing the snow on the tops of them. And I just was like, where have I landed? And that is one of the most beautiful things about for me about being in this community is because there's this like pull, like we pull each other.
yeah.
We pull each other to ourselves or to each other to make these trips to then do this thing,
Right.
and I mean just seeing especially this past um Iron Tribe with the performance with
Hmm.
David and Toby smacking the iron against the wall, like
Yeah.
I mean that was
Well,
a magic moment,
yeah.
so like so ingrained in me, like this is an amazing experience. So
Yeah. At one point several years ago, Dave Lobdell asked me, there was a school paper or something wanted me to write a little um, piece on Dave Lobdell.
yeah,
And so it occurred to me, and you were just kind of hinting at it unknowingly, that he's one of the original, maybe second or third generation gangsters in the art community.
yeah,
Um, he does pull people
yeah,
together. The way I see it is he's like an iron bar, and the people that are around him are like these copper windings. And when you put those copper windings around that steel bar, and then you introduce energy, you get this attraction, this magnetic attraction. And then people just kind of are drawn in.
yeah,
It's to me, it's like a beautiful metaphor of physics and community. And it really is being drawn in because of I think the iron is one of the magnetic, it responds to a magnetic field.
yeah.
So I don't know, that's kind of clunky, but
No,
uh,
I think it's beautiful. I think it's doing him justice.
yeah, and it applies to all the OGs that are around: Wayne,
Yeah.
Cliff, uh, Donnie Keene, you know, Butch,
Mm,
all of them. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah. And
Tom
we
Dyke,
see it yeah, Tom
Dan
Guy.
Hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. So you got introduced to David Lobdell.
yeah,
And then
and
what
then
happened?
and then we were going all over the country for different pours,
Yeah.
and I think it was around it was maybe like 2005 or 2006. I was at an iron pour in Flagstaff, and I met Jack Braun. And you probably know Jack.
I know. I know. I don't know if well, I shouldn't say that. I should say yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So he was leading the sculpture program there, and I believe Kurt Darhung was one of the guest artists up there.
Yeah.
That was a really cool experience, just in a different place, and it was kind of a cool shop that he had, and everybody, we hit it off with him. I think that was maybe the first time Toby had met him, and we had a bunch of. I think Toby was back from grad school, and
Hmm.
we had a bunch of students from San Diego State that were interested in going. So we had like a two car road trip.
Yeah, caravan. Yeah.
Yeah, and Yeah, and I think I remember seeing a poster in there that the year before Dave Lobdell had been the guest artist versus Kurt, who was there that year. So I met Kurt, and uh, he was a real interesting character back then, as he probably still is today.
Yeah.
Um, so we got familiar with, I think it's the Texas Atomic Energy Commission,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the cast iron group in
Yeah.
Texas. And I think Kurt and Jack were part of that. And yeah, so that was kind of just another group of folks that I wound up meeting through the
Yeah.
cast iron community. And yeah, I think after that we were Dave Lobdell and Jack were trying to come up with some compact or some group that would be like a West Coast version of the Atomic Energy Commission.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how the Western all got started. It was Jack and Dave talking about it. And then it was 2007. I think we were talking about it at the tribe. And um, and Ashley and Dave Jones were there. Noah and Allison were there. I think Ted was there. I think everybody and Chris Meyer, I think, was there also. So Dave was talking about it with Jack, and uh, they just decided. Rian was there, and her former husband was there, and they decided that we're just going to give it a shot. And Ashley and Dave Lobdell worked together to put all the paperwork together to get us the 503c
Nonprofit. Yeah.
paperwork, and that's how the Western got started. And yeah, so we had the first group was Brian, myself, Toby. Um, we had gosh, I don't think Noah or Allison were part of Hopi Brayton from Diablo Valley College up in Pleasanton, California.
Yeah.
Uh, Brad from University of Montana, Missoula, Brad Allen,
Yeah.
and Dave Lobdell. It was a little smaller group,
Mm-hmm.
but that's when we started. We had our first conference in Denver, and Rian hosted that and did a great job. It was a large time, that one, and it was a really cool off campus spot that we had. It was like a big trucking warehouse where semi tractors back up to this long building, and there's like 25 doors on each side.
All right. Yeah.
So yes, we had the inside and the outside, and yeah, it was a great turnout. A lot of the older crew that were getting ready to retire or looking towards retirement showed up. Yeah, we had a bunch of the kingpins there. George Beasley was there.
Wow. Yeah.
And it was really great to be in their midst. And furnace competition. Rian students made this badass furnace that ran like nobody could believe, and was the coolest design exterior that I think I'd ever seen until that point on furnaces. So yeah, and then the Western, I kind of that was like the thing that I was proudest to be involved with. And I was still working. I was teaching, finishing grad school, and
So where were you in grad school?
at San Diego State.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so I applied to a dozen different schools, and I got accepted at State and at Boise State and
Mm.
University of New Mexico in Las Cruces.
Mm-hmm.
But I decided against Las Cruces. I would have loved to have gone there, but they only were offering an MA. So
Yeah.
and my wife's career was doing real well, and we had bought the house here and like
Yeah.
halfway through paying off the mortgage. So I decided that I'll just hang in town and go to San Diego State and make the
Yeah.
best of it. And it turned out to be a good thing. I had a great cadre of graduate students at San Diego State.
Good. So you
As
did get an
Yeah, as
experience.
Toby and Ted had. Yeah, so it was great to be in that mix. A couple of them have been pretty successful. Dave Clemens and Mia Hall are currently the operators of Penland, and so
Oh,
they're running the show over there, or Mia
wow.
is anyway.
Yeah.
And I don't know for how long she plans to do that, but I suspect, and I see the schedule every year that that comes out, and they have some really interesting classes, and a bunch of really excellent artists, and
Oh yeah. I mean, Penland is amazing. It's magical. I mean, that if we also want to talk about the magic of a place, I think there's Penland is one of those places
yeah,
that magic
one of these
happens.
days I'm gonna get there.
You will. You will. And I will too, you know?
Yeah, there you go.
And Ashley was there a couple of years ago, two
Hmm.
years ago or something,
Yeah,
teaching a iron concentration.
right.
So, there's I think opportunities to go to be a student. I don't know if they call it students or if it's like a participant. I'm not familiar with their language, but then
Yeah,
there's also, instructor opportunities. And I
right.
don't think that they see a lot of iron, but I think that they support it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
anyways,
I was thankful to have been around those folks. And then got out of grad school. Started teaching right away at the college that I'm working at now.
okay.
And then the teaching opportunities kind of dried up, so I switched to a technician role and
Yeah.
at a big foundry, and a lot of equipment there. So I wound up. I enjoy that work, keeping everything running, and
Yeah.
I kind of have skill sets that are tailored to that, and
Hmm.
so I've enjoyed doing that. There, I worked at San Diego State as the technician in the art department, and for a while there, I think it was between 2013 and 2020, I had my own studio that I was working out of. It was called Slagpole Enterprises, and I did a variety of things there. A lot of steel fabrication, some sculpture making, some mold making. I had some private classes where I taught a dad and his teenage son how to weld, so it was a good bonding experience for them.
Yeah.
And yeah, COVID took that whole. I was on an industrial kind of industrial park street, and there was like four fabrication shops, and mine was kind of like tailored towards sculpture, and the rest of them were working in the craft beer industry here in San Diego. They were building all these, pipe systems and stuff out of stainless steel. And one day I was driving over to my studio, and I saw this guy at Sun Sheet Metal. I saw him dragging this 10-foot long shear out of the shop with this big Heister forklift. And I pulled into the lot, and I asked him what was going on. He said, COVID just knocked the wind out of the business, and there just was nothing. He said, I tried to stay in business and keep my guys working, but I had to let them go, and I tried to stay and do it all myself, and that wasn't going to happen. So yeah, I was the last one on the block to keep my doors open.
Wow.
Ultimately, it was unsustainable.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, the cost of rent in San Diego for commercial space is just, I don't even know if they do dollar per square foot rating anymore. Maybe $100 per square foot.
Wow. Yeah.
That's an exaggeration, but
Well,
it's out of reach for many people, even with like groups. But in any event, I went back to work at San Diego State, and was teaching classes through the time I was doing the freelance work. I was teaching classes at some of the community colleges here in town, and did a couple of workshops at San Diego State in their foundry, and then was teaching classes there as well. So currently, I'm at Grossmont College, and I'm making art and trying to show it, and busy planning a conference.
yeah, I bet. Well, that's a full schedule. And so I'm just realizing now, like, I haven't been grilling you about your work.
Oh yeah,
Like, usually that's one of the things I try and, carry the thread along. Like, what did your work look like in undergrad? What did it look like in grad school? But maybe we'll just do a little hop back
Okay.
to maybe what was your work. More so, I'm interested in how you were incorporating iron and iron components, or well, iron components that you cast
Mhm.
into your work, like kind of from the get-go.
Yeah, I think when I first started, it was I was doing this thing that was the tools as art
Okay.
idea, and I'd been to a bunch of different blacksmiths, smithies, and saw these swage blocks that were beat to hell, and every one of them.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I'd like to make one that takes these functional. It's a functional layout, I guess, or it sometimes look haphazard to me. And
Right. Well, we're not blacksmiths, so it's
yeah,
hard for
right.
us to, but I know what you mean. Like, it's like, why are all these holes? Is it all important? And a blacksmith or,
I'm sure they are.
yeah, of course, but we don't
So I
know.
thought maybe I'm just going to refine these shapes, and I'm going to take a few holes out. I'm going to take it and make the form different. So I started to take this 4-inch thick foam and do these bandsaw cuts on it, and I made these swage blocks that were 4 inches thick, and they all weighed about 85
I
pounds.
was gonna say heavy.
They fit in a ammo can, so they're
Oh,
just like a perfect fit. You can put them in, and that's when I show them. That's how I ship them. But
fantastic.
yeah, so I'd cast those and get the knock the sprue off and the vent off, and then take it to a buddy of mine's machine shop, and he'd put it on the mill and mill both the sides. It's like
Okay.
super flat
Yeah.
and create these kind of scratching patterns in the surface. So when you walk in and look at it, the light refracts, and they were really cool. I love making them, um, and they take quite a bit out of that ladle.
I bet. Yeah.
I got a critique from one of my well, actually the entire graduate committee. They're saying, "Oh, that cast iron, that's old news. That's it speaks to some age, and we don't think you should head in the direction of
Hmm.
making more of what people used to make." But the thing about those swage blocks was they were so heavy and the edges were so sharp from that milling, um, that I had people cut themselves, or they would like manipulate the block and it would fall on their hand. And, they had, I was worried about them breaking fingers and stuff, but people couldn't keep their hands off of them. And they
Oh,
had oil on them to keep them from getting
resting.
fingerprints
Yeah.
and so forth. And I thought, well, there's something compelling about them, because even the people that told me that I shouldn't be working in that direction can't keep their hands off of them.
Yeah.
So
That's a sign.
yeah, so I was actually, I thought I was working hard. I had like 5 or 6 of them that I showed at this one critique, and my colleagues had like one piece. They were working on other stuff, but the committee was somehow confused by the 6 pieces that they all were swage blocks. They all had kind of similarities, but they were all distinctly different shapes. So that kind of gave me the idea that I'm going to try to use iron in a way that will not allow them to know by looking at it that it is iron. So
Oh.
I happened to be at a one of the tribe pours, and Matt Toole was there.
Hmm.
He made these. He had a bunch of like 8-inch by 8-inch plywood squares, and
Hmm.
he cut a hole in the middle of them, and he stacked them up and rotated them as he stacked them. And we poured iron into them, and of course, flames
Of
and
course. Yeah.
sparks came spitting out of the thing. And the next day, though, when he cracked it open, I mean, it really kind of fell apart, the wooden mold.
Yeah.
But that thing that came out of it was like, it was like some H.E. Geiger, horror movie condensed into a piece of sculpture. I don't even know how somebody could handle that thing without cutting the leather on their gloves and then a gash in their hand.
Yeah.
But it was the most wicked, and it was really, its ugliness was beautiful. It
Mm.
was like it was somewhere between uh, wherever that line is between ugliness and beauty, it was right on there. It was teetering.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's it. I'm just going to change the way that I make my molds. And I'm not going to expect this thing that in my brain, I know what it is. So I started working, anticipating what this mold would create, because they were plywood molds and I had all different kinds of wood.
Yeah.
So I made these reaction molds, not so much for the reaction, which was a nice side effect,
Of course. Yeah.
but for the casting that would come out. So I had a bunch of termite eaten pieces of timber from a friend of mine who remodeled their house. I mean, you could cut a section of this 2x6, 3 or 4 feet long. You could see from in one end all the way out to the other. So that was like, these were the valleys or the areas on the board that I wanted to put into the mold so we could pour iron into those.
Yeah.
Did several of those and they turned out incredible. That gnawed out spot of that piece of cedar or redwood just perfectly took the iron. And while it charred everything away, there was enough integrity in that wood to keep the surface of those little cavities like super smooth. And the rest of the mold was like this wicked, jagged, sharp. So it was a nice contrast.
Yeah.
And I brought those back for the next critique, and they didn't know what the material was. So then I laid it on them about the iron and your comments on my last work.
Yep.
This is the range that, in a couple months I was able to achieve. So, maybe it's not about the material so much that you're concerned about. It's maybe that, you don't like that particular view of the material, or, you're not totally down with what I'm doing. And, there's nothing wrong with that. That's like part of the process. So it was really nice to, hear them talk about the swage blocks and then go and do this other thing and bring back a product that they couldn't tell what it was. And they kind of, I think after that, they were interested. We held probably a half a dozen iron pours at San Diego State when I was in grad school. And
Oh, great. Yeah.
so they got the graduate committee and all my colleagues. We got Dave Clemens and Steve Donnelly down from the jewelry area. They were down there making molds and they were carrying ladles, and
Great.
they loved it. Even the wood shop, we had world-class wood program. All of those grads were down and building molds out of wood products, and we had a great time when we had those pours and barbecues in the foundry afterwards. It was yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And so then just like, because I want to, it's interesting to hear the story about how your work kind of responded to their opinions. Like then you had this reactionary kind of about face in a way, or it made you look for something different, and then the work changed because of it. And you found something different. And also sounds like you were excited about the swage block inspired pieces, but then also like this other thing excited you as well. And so like you were saying about the range, like, I mean, I think that it really, iron has such a range, and to
Right.
have such a range in your personal practice is also an amazing strength that I think probably you benefited from their, you know, kind of pushing back
Yeah.
about it. But
Yeah.
so I want to keep talking about that
Okay.
because I also know what a little bit I think about what your work kind of is now, just from what I've seen at the conferences and the mold pieces and stuff. But I also want to know details like, so whose furnace were you using?
Mm.
And
We
like, and I guess it's not like really important, but it's also we're, you know, I'm trying to record kind of who, what, where. So who was, so
Yeah. Well, I think the swage blocks were all poured at once, and it was um, we had visiting artists, and the visiting artist was Toby and Brad Allen.
awesome. Yeah.
Maybe another grad from the Salukis, and yeah, I can't remember everybody, but
Of course. Yeah.
yeah, they brought Toby had just built a furnace down there at SMU. So Gus is the furnace's name. So they got a van from the motor pool and got a trailer and put that furnace on the trailer with all the gear and all the everything he needed. And then we got the coke and the iron. Uh, so that was like one of the first pours we did at San Diego State for like since Jerry Doomlaw was doing them back in the 80s.
Yeah.
A lot of the swage blocks, I took a couple of them to the tribe and over to ASU. Um, and then the ones that were the reaction molds, we did those at San Diego State. I did some at ASU and some at the tribe. So I was using everybody else's furnace. I was taking my stuff and doing the road trip thing, which became a really important part of my work is the American subculture of over the road drivers that are art makers.
Yeah.
That's really uh, unless you fly somewhere, that's how you get to pours. That's mostly how everybody does because they got to haul around, several hundred pounds of molds and
Gear. Yeah.
all that. And in the time that I was suppressing my art making, I was a trucker and I used to drive up the I-5 corridor from San Diego up into Oregon and the Bay Area
Okay.
and back. So you see a lot of things on the road that if you were flying in a plane, you'd never see.
Yeah.
It's so, I really had a love for road trips and I still do. And I love taking them. And I think like when we went to the international conference in Scranton, I flew into Oklahoma City, and I think Dave Lobdell picked me up, and we drove from Oklahoma City to Scranton and back. And usually I'm flying, but just to get somewhere where I can be part of the road trip with whoever might be going. Um, so that might be something for those folks coming to San Diego to consider that you could, instead of fly all the way to San Diego, meet your friends in Kansas and drive with them.
Yeah. That's a great option. But I have to, well, yeah, I mean, it might be almost time for us to start talking about the upcoming conference, but I will just a little quick introduction. So I told you before we started recording that I just bought my tickets
Mm-hmm.
and I bought them because well, I think like the first thing is that everybody's got to contact your friends. Contact your friends, see who's going, see if anybody wants to go in on an Airbnb or share a hotel room with you, because that's what happened. I was at the Down on the Farm pour at Kelly Ludeking's place.
Yeah.
And I ran into some people from Hayes and oh, are you going to the Western? Yeah, I am, but I don't know anything about where I'm going to be staying or anything. And she was like, oh, we have an Airbnb that somebody just dropped out of. And I was like, me, I'm in it. So now I have a place to stay with people that I trust to stay with. And so then I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to be giving them a deposit of money for the Airbnb. Let me just look at the airfare. And so I just went online and I guess I honestly, the furthest I've ever flown was to go to Iron Tribe. So
Mm-hmm.
to Albuquerque. And
Yeah.
that I bought those tickets really early. And so they were very affordable. And I think that that's a thing is like I looked um on Thursday
Mm-hmm.
and just to get out there was like $158.
Wow.
And for direct flight
Yeah,
from
that's
St.
crazy.
Louis to San Diego. And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, let's go." And so now coming back on Sunday, it's a little bit more expensive because that's everybody's traveling on the weekend. So that
Right.
makes sense. But that was a little over $200. But the way that it evened out with such a low airfare to get there, like totally
I'm so happy to hear
I,
that.
like I was just shocked at how affordable it was, but now it's like, pretty early ahead. Now, when this goes out in September, I think everybody will be having like a month to get there
Yeah.
or a little over a month to kind of get their act together and get excited about it and stuff. And so what we're talking about is just fly somewhere maybe where you have a friend and then ride with them.
Yeah.
And honestly, they'll probably have more fun than I will alone
Yeah.
on
Well,
my direct flight.
yeah.
But
Well, and I was concerned that we were getting the word out too late. We've been
no.
working on this for a year, and that last thing I want is to have anybody have an unsavory experience. So yeah, I think everything is, if it's not already gone on the website as far as registration, I think we've got a lot of information up there that Ashley's worked really hard to populate. And yeah, so I think we had a Facebook notice go out and
Yep, yep. We
a
all saw it. Yeah.
contact email. So yeah, the word's out.
Yeah, and I've been blasting it on the, even before I knew the dates, because I mention the Western board every single episode. And so I've been like, save the date for the fall of, 2024. And so then when we knew it was going to be Halloween weekend, like, and then once we had the solid dates, I've been saying the dates. So I hope, or nobody's going to be surprised if,
Yeah.
if they got their ear to the ground
Hmm.
about this iron, especially if they've gone to other Western conferences in the past,
Yeah.
like, you know, people are gonna know. And there, I think, like, I mean, I mentioned it at the farm, and that's so now it's like the beginning of July right now, and there's already like Airbnbs booked,
Yeah. Right.
in the area, and
Good.
our Airbnb looks fabulous. Like there's a pool and it's on a lake, and
Wow.
it kind of,
Sounds
yeah.
killer.
I got really lucky in just like falling into this opportunity, so I'm really grateful. And
Yeah.
I'm so excited. So it's like everything. It's like it's so far, it seems so far away. It seems so far away, planning, 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 and then it all happens. You know
Hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And one of the
Yeah.
things, like, I was just gonna go on a little bit about one of the things I like about the Western Conference is like it's so relaxed and like the go with the flow, and you have time to see everything. And a lot of us, we go to the national conference and we go to SLOSS, and
Yeah.
that's in its own category, because they're
Right.
like apples and oranges, like completely different. You get different experiences from different conferences. Like I'll get a different experience from going to the Down on the Farm Poor than I will going to the Western, than I
Hmm.
will going to the Southern Illinois University Carbondale School Iron Pour. But
Right.
or going to Sculpture Trails. Like, but they're all good experiences.
Yeah.
Because if it was a repeat, well, why would I go to that? So it's like we don't want a repeat of SLOSS, and we don't like the Western. And I always liked that you can, like, everything is spaced out really well. You have time to see every single panel, every single artist talk.
Yeah.
And I think that that's not always the case for some conferences, because there's just so much. There's like so
Right.
many people vying for um like a little bit of time and your
Right.
time. And so then you have to kind of pick, do I want to watch this person run their furnace, or do I want to see that panel in the building? And so there's this like choosing that has to happen at some conferences, but at the Western, I've felt like it's not like that. So
Yeah. We're cognizant of that because we've all been to all the, we've been to SLOSS and we've been to the international. At least I've only been to the ones here in the States, but yeah, it's hard to guess what people will want, and we figured that our experiences at SLOSS and at the national conference were that there was so much going on, and we appreciate everything that they did put together. And SLOSS every other year, they do a killer job down there too.
oh yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
so we just thought, yeah, it's going to be a smaller conference. Maybe we don't have to spend so much money to put it on if we're not having so many events. And yeah, the thing about this conference is that the attendees can see, if they're, and we only have a couple panel discussions to keep it in a kind of laid back situation where you're not trying to figure out which part of the conference you want to attend. So I think over the years, we found that to be a successful formula. And there would be more of that this year.
Yeah. And I agree. I think it's good.
And, we also want people to kind of get a feel for the area that we're operating in too. So at least this conference won't be so heavily laden with activities. There will be plenty for everyone, but there's also time to get out and get away from campus and go check out the Pacific Ocean if you never have, you know.
Oh,
So we've got a list of attractions on the website that I hope people will take into account and find themselves, going around town. We're only Grossmont's like a 20-minute drive from the Pacific Ocean, so it's a straight shot. And I would like to have been able to have the time to put an event together down at the beach, but
yeah.
there's just not enough time, and people
That's,
can't just stay. Well, I'm going to stay till from Wednesday to Wednesday because everybody's working, and that's
yeah.
during the school year.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, that part didn't make it into the mix, but
That's
it
okay.
will. There's enough time for everybody to take their own trip out
Yeah.
there.
Oh, I'm going. I'm going. Now that you said that, you couldn't keep
You
me
got to go.
away. I got to. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's going to be great.
yeah. It's a lot of work to put these things together, but it's all worth it in the end when people are walking out of there with smiles on their faces and a couple castings under each arm, and yeah, looking forward to the next one. And yeah, it's always a good time.
Yeah. And we appreciate it. I mean, I would say that I can say that, well, it's like every conference changes my life, but yeah, especially the Hayes one,
Hmm.
because that was kind of right at a very young time in my life. And I had just gone out of grad school. And that was the first time I'd gone to a conference that wasn't SLOS. And so seeing like what else was out there was really exciting.
Yeah.
And then the intimacy of the South Dakota um, Western was phenomenal. And like there was something about like we would all eat together, like
Hmm.
the lunches and stuff would all be together. And so I met like um I guess I'm gonna name drop somebody right now, but Michael Ebling. And so he's in um Madison, Wisconsin.
Hmm.
And so he was out there. Like I didn't know. So I'm just eating lunch. I can't even remember what I was eating. Something delicious, of course. And somebody, oh, can I sit here? Sure. And so then we start talking, and he's like, I've been out of the community for a while, but now like my kid is grown, and so I'm getting back into it or whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, where are you? Like, what's your story? Sort of a thing. And it turns out that he was one of Julius Schmidt's last students from the University of Iowa. And I'm like, oh my God. Like that was like a kind of like a star struck moment for me, just
Hmm.
to just so, because Michael is so like unassumingly honest and genuine and nice. And so then he starts talking about this furnace
Hmm.
that he built under Julius's direction,
Hmm.
and how he's like maybe kind of thinking about he might want to bring it to Sloss maybe or something. And I was like, you definitely should. You have to. And then
Yeah.
it turns out that he did. And then Toby ran on it and it like lanced it, and it meant a lot to a lot of people to see that furnace at Sloss,
Yeah.
with the hiccups that they did have. And of course the rain was that one day was crazy. But and
Sure.
so it's like, and that's like that. I don't know if something like that would have happened necessarily at another conference.
Hmm. Yeah. Who knows?
Who knows? And
Yeah.
and it doesn't even really matter, but I kind of feel like that's the energy that the Western conferences have. And so I'm so excited for this upcoming one.
Yeah, we are too. It'll be fun.
And there'll be another carnival.
Carnival is on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be
And any like additions to the carnival or anything, because it's like there was the bathtub rides, there was the games, there was the sloss toss. I don't even know some of the games, like what their official names are. Like you could
yeah.
win.
the bot toss, the sloss toss. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
all of those attractions will be present at the carnival. Toby may have a couple tricks up his sleeve.
Whoa.
I,
Whoa.
I don't know
Well,
about any of them.
well, because it is kind of no, it is Toby's brainchild, this
That's
carnival,
right.
right? Right. So we'll see what he's yeah. I'm even more excited now knowing. Ooh.
Yeah, there's be Sharpie tattoos, character drawing.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, there's a few other things in addition. Face painting, uh, I guess, but the only face painting restriction is it can only be black eyes.
yeah.
So
It
um, yeah, I'm not sure what the full range is, and I don't know that I want to give
yeah.
all
Yeah.
that information,
Yeah.
but
Let's
yeah,
leave some surprise.
it'll be
Yeah.
fun.
It's gonna
And
be fun.
Our dean is going to put on a performance after the reception closes on Thursday night. She's a
Okay.
harpist, and I asked her, "Can you play Led Zeppelin? Can you play Stairway to Heaven on that thing?" And she, matter of factly, told me she's like, "Well, actually, that song was written for harp,
No.
not officially, but
Yeah.
so they're going to put on a concert after, and it's the concert hall is right next to the gallery. So when the gallery closes, we can move over to the concert hall and see what she's got in store. She hasn't really said anything as far as the rest of the band members, so um, it'll be surprising,
That's
and
gonna be great.
I think it'll
Yeah.
be.
So, but let's see. So we'll have so will there be a mold making workshops?
Yeah, ceramic shell mold making, sand mold, reaction mold. There's going
Okay.
to be a workshop on foundry tongs. Our friend Mike Reamer, blacksmith, is going to come down and lead that workshop. And tiny iron will
Oh
also be
yeah.
part of it.
Perfect. Ooh. At some
And,
point I have to take the tiny iron workshop and I'm like, maybe this is we'll see. We've got a little while before I have
yeah,
to decide.
well,
Um,
and I think you probably have all the assets you need to make it work if you can't take the workshop.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's one trick that you need to know, and um, Allison will let you know what that is at the
Yeah. Yeah.
tiny iron.
So then there'll be a performance pour evening event.
Yes, an evening event. There will be the conference during the day, and that'll be Friday. Um,
Friday. Uh-huh.
and so the conference, carnival, and then Friday night we'll do the performance pour. And we've got, as you all probably know, just from watching the news, California is on fire
Yeah.
365 days a year somewhere.
Yeah.
So we've got close scrutiny from the local fire department on
Of
what we're doing.
course.
So
Rightfully so. Yes.
yeah, we're not looking to gain popularity through negative, publicity, and
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's kind of one of the overarching concerns that we have to keep ourselves aware of.
Yeah.
So Chris and I were talking yesterday about how we get to the point where we don't have floaty embers in the sky floating away and over into.
Yeah.
So all that stuff is like super important. So, but I think totally doable. You
Yeah.
know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, it should be good. And then the production pour on Saturday morning.
Saturday. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
and
then Saturday night, the
Saturday
relief
night.
party. That's what I
Yeah,
always or well, so openings, exhibition openings on Thursday.
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and yeah, Saturday night. I'm still trying to find a room. Um, shouldn't be hard. Just haven't found the right one yet. And
Oh,
group
yeah.
group meal, and we'll do slide roulette in there.
Perfect.
Yeah, so we need to put together an email addresses for everybody to send their images to.
Yeah. Yeah. But that'll, that can be more closer to the conference because we won't be thinking about it until we'll be at the conference.
Yeah, we'll put the word out just to put it in
Yeah.
everybody's head to not forget to bring 3 digital images. I'm sure everybody will on one
Yeah.
device or another. But, yeah, so yeah,
I
can't wait for late October to get here.
I know. And what's the weather like in that type of time of year? Is it
It's
Oh,
sunny. It's
okay.
really kind of some of the nicest part of the weather in San Diego. It might be like it'll be between 60 and 80, and it'll be
Okay.
sunny all day. There won't be any marine layer that kind of takes the sun out of the coastal area for half the day. So it should be perfect weather. Um,
Beautiful.
yeah,
Awesome.
that's kind of the reason we scheduled it then.
Yeah.
Any sooner, like it's about 90 degrees here now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's not like that's not the temperature everywhere in the country. I'm sure where
Right.
you're
It
at,
is where I am. Yeah.
yeah, and matching humidity most likely.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so we didn't want anybody to be physically uncomfortable because
Yeah.
of course everybody who knows what these pores are about know that you cover yourself up and there's no breathing
No. Yeah.
fabric. It just
Yeah.
doesn't happen if you want to be protected.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. We know what we're signing up for, but it also is nice that you're taking into consideration like a little bit cooler weather, but you know.
yeah, yeah, and I think it'll be a transition point also for the fall colors to start coming out, which we don't see in San Diego. But when you all come here from home, you'll be here for a few days, and on the way back, I suspect
Oh,
you'll start seeing the change of
yeah.
weather.
Yeah. Especially driving.
Mhm.
There's something about doing a long drive through the season transition. You can, as you go through the different areas, it's
Right.
apparent in a way that you wouldn't usually see as you like live your day-to-day life. So, yeah, that's a great thing to have insight into.
Yeah.
All right. Well, was there anything else you want to talk about the conference?
We'll have a couple, 3 or 4 demos that'll go an hour. You're probably familiar with Sculpt Nouveau. Um, it's a company that manufactures, I would say, more environmentally friendly patina
Oh,
materials.
okay. Yeah.
Sculpt Nouveau is up in Escondido, which is about 40 miles north of San Diego, and they're going to come down and bring a bunch of different products with them, and they're going to do a patina demo on some iron pieces. I'm going to do a patina demo on iron work that I do. I do this melted crayon patina, and so I'm going to do that demo. And then we've got a can't remember what the third demo was that was
That's okay. We can leave it to surprise too.
yeah,
Like more will be revealed because it
yeah.
will
So
on the website and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, it'll be a full week, but it'll be fun, and there will be time for people to go off and do their own thing for a little bit if they need to or want to.
Awesome. Yeah. I can't wait. I really can't.
Yeah.
So, because kind of what I'm realizing is I jumped the gun because we were talking about your work and we were having a really great conversation about the breadth of iron capabilities in your practice. And then I don't know what happened. But then we started talking about the conference. But can you lead us from what you were making in grad school, just like you know, the uh, I don't want to say cliff notes, but just kind of like the story arc to the pieces that you make now with
Sure.
the mold, kind of like when you came last year to Webster University in St. Louis and did the as a visiting artist and did demos on the sand cutting and
Right.
assemblage molding. That's very intriguing to me, and also it seems like in my opinion as a viewer, the mold is just as important as then the casting that it produces.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm reading it right. Yeah, but like, how did that
Well,
happen?
it started because there was all this mold waste that was
Yeah.
just getting thrown away, and I thought one of my mentors was a wood carver. His name was Jess Dominguez. He passed away last year. But some of the art he used to make was he would cut these mahogany strips like an inch tall by a quarter inch wide, and then he'd take 4 feet of it, and he would just sit there with a knife, and he would carve into one short side of this strip of mahogany, and he would do it over and over, and he'd get 25 or 30 of those strips, and then he would laminate them all back together. And it would be this like super complex carved surface with all these nooks and crannies. So I was always intrigued by that. And we talked one time, and he didn't pre-plan anything other than to make these strips and have a knife. And he called it impulse work. And he says what it is you are familiar enough now with this material where you can take some of it and you can go somewhere, and you don't have to have a plan in advance. This is like what I equate it to is like a musical version of an improvisation, only it's in the making process of some kind of visual art. And so I started seeing all this mold waste around, and I thought I could carve into that. So I started collecting that, and I guess that was one way it started. Another kind of parallel angle in was there was all these molds that people would ram up, but nobody would ever cast. So I'd see them sitting around for a couple years, and I'd be like, whose mold is this?
Yeah.
Nobody knew. So what I used to do was I would fly to wherever there was a pour, like we poured in Laramie with Dave and Ashley one time. And I just asked Dave and Toby if they had any mold waste anywhere, and they brought it. And so from that mold waste, I built a mold.
Yeah.
And then we poured the mold. The mold, as it had, there was like 5 or 6 different kinds of binder systems.
Okay.
So each one of them has its own color.
Yeah.
So the mold itself, that's really kind of when that pour was really when I started thinking how what agency these molds had as authoritarian, authoritative pieces that are autonomous in their own right as an art piece. And so we cast that. I wound up selling the casting to Allison and Noah, and I started doing my patina crayon melting thing with that also. So that piece was really a breakthrough on kind of the work that I do now.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for 10 years, but the idea is that I make the mold, and then I pour the casting, and then the casting gets mounted as a low relief to some kind of background. And backgrounds I've been using are made of the reflective road signs that you see as a road tripper. So I find those on the road and I collect them. And this whole thing is kind of based on this concept that you may have heard of called the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon.
No, tell me.
You know what it is. Everybody knows what it is. And when I describe the symptoms, you'll understand. Okay. So let's say that tomorrow you buy a red pickup truck, and you're driving, and you come up to a stop sign and you notice, hey, that's that 2024, Cheyenne Chevy pickup, the red one, like the one I have.
Yes, you're right. Yes.
So you start to, or if you read a statement or something, and you read or you hear a word or something, and you hear it like 3 or 4 times in the same week or whatever.
Yeah.
That whole phenomenon is the Baader-Meinhof. So my idea with my art is that I take something from the road and I put it into that art piece, and then you come and see it. And then on your way home, you are reminded of my art by the thing that you see on the road sign, because of its attachment to that art piece. So that's where the castings come in. But before the castings are even there, I go back to the mold as the art piece. The molds are primarily made out of materials that I'm familiar with, that I've used in my working life. I used to hang drywall, so I use drywall in them because it's inexpensive, it's abundant, and it's a refractory material, which is why they build buildings with it. So I assemble those, and I remember Wayne telling me, so you make the most beautiful molds. I don't know why you destroy them with pouring that iron in there. And I thought, here's a guy who's traveled the world in the past, in my lifetime, looking at the way people make art. And for him to say something like that to me is pretty significant. It always means a lot. Absolutely. But I know he must have seen somebody doing it somewhere before. And I haven't yet. I'm going to talk to him when I see him at the conference. But I want to know if what I've been doing in his mind is seminal work. And it may be for me, it may be for the, for the community. but I don't like casting them anymore because, the thing I like about the casting part is that not the casting itself, but what it does to the foundry floor when they usually get poured like at twilight,
Yeah.
and there's not a whole bunch of light usually on the foundry floor, so they add light and ambiance to the pour scene there. And yeah, so it's partially Jess Dominguez influence, partially Toby influence, partially Julius Schmidt, because Julius, built so many molds that way, and I've seen a bunch of his castings, and I learned so much about the mold building that he was doing just from looking at the casting, and of course I try to emulate some of that in the work that I do, but that's kind of the link from that pour that we had in Laramie to what I'm doing now is pretty much on the same wavelength. I did one other piece that I call Wide Mouth that really kind of locked in this Baader-Meinhof thing because I hear comments from people. And if you're a road tripper, early in the morning and late in the evening when the shadows are long, you might be driving and see this little sparkly thing down on the horizon. And you get there, it's a Gatorade bottle that's filled with piss.
Yep.
And,
yeah.
trucker bombs or whatever.
Yeah.
But with the attenuation of light and the amplification of light through that multifaceted plastic container
And liquid.
things
Yeah.
they kind of sparkle at you.
Oh yeah.
And so I built a sculpture called Wide Mouth, and it was kind of influenced by the time that I spent trucking and understanding why these things are on the road, even though I would never put them out.
Yeah.
But they're there. And if you're on the road, you see them. If you fly everywhere, you don't see those things.
Yeah.
So I built this sculpture and I showed it in a couple of places. And then, like, all of a sudden on my phone, I get people sending me photos of a piss jar on the side of the road, like in, bumfuck
Yeah.
Kansas. And I get them like once every couple months lately. But this piece was like 10 years ago. I think I showed it in Hayes when we did the conference there. And and when I see these people in person, they're like, oh yeah, when we were driving here, we saw like 3 or 4 of those bottles and we thought of you every time. And so my intention was not to be associated with the piss jar.
No.
But the Baader-Meinhof part of the idea that I had for people recognizing my work is that kind of instilled in me the proof that it was a worthy conceptual platform from which to operate.
Yeah.
So you'll see them now.
I won't be able to miss them now. I'll know exactly.
We talked about it.
That's great. Yeah.
That's a road trip part of it.
Yeah. And I am like, well, so I just went to Hayes on the, no, I misspoke. I just went to the farm on the road trip. And then I went to a new pour this was the second year, but it's called the Hoosier Pattern Pour.
Oh.
And it's in northeastern Indiana. And there's a company there called Hoosier Patterns. Like that's the company's name in Indiana. Let me think of it's in Decatur, Indiana. And then Kelly's is in Decorah, Iowa, but the D's I kind of get a little mixed up. But so the farm is Decorah, Iowa, Hoosier Pattern Pour, Decatur, Indiana, Decatur, Indiana. And so we drove there. And so I really enjoyed both of those road trips because it's been a while. Because a lot of times it's, I'll road trip to Sloss, but it's a lot of it also is to be able to have enough time off of work to drive the drive. And so, but I wanted to, because I think we're about wrapping up now. If there's as long as there's nothing I missed.
Well, I did want to say one thing, include a couple people when I had this idea of transitioning from focus on the casting to focus on the mold. It was Andrew Marsh and James Hayes were both instrumental in that transition period because of the work that I saw that they were doing at the time. And Andrew was making these, what he called the pain trophies, and all these pill bottles that he would glue together and then gently sand around it.
Yeah, with like it was like cardboard, like
Cereal
cereal
boxes.
boxes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I didn't appreciate how influential those were at the time. But as
Mhm.
I sit back and I think, who were the inspirators? That kind of moved the work in that direction, and both James and Andrew were part of that group.
Mhm.
So, right on, brothers, if you're watching this.
That's I'm sure they are actually. But that was really nice of you to point them out. Yeah. And James is actually at Sloss right now doing
Oh,
a residency, the like summer
mhm,
artist in residence or
that's cool.
something. Well, not or something. Like I think they're there. He and Letitia
Hmm.
Bahuyo are there right now for the summer. So
Yeah,
I think he's having a good time.
yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Sure he is.
I mean, who would I would be too.
Yeah,
And so, so we've got that the conference is hot on the horizon, but is there anything else that you want to talk about that you've got hot on the horizon? I mean, the conference is a lot.
yeah, yeah. That's kind of got most of my attention.
Yeah.
But I'm working on a commission piece that friend of mine, his wife passed away last year suddenly, and
Mm.
he found out that she had been collecting Schwinn bicycles and storing them in a storage unit for
Oh,
what he thinks is a couple of years, but he didn't know anything about it, and he doesn't
yeah.
know why she was doing it. But he wants me to take that stock and create a sculpture that he can put in their home in Del Mar.
Yeah.
And they've got three kids, and he wants me to make a sculpture for each one of them. So I've been visiting that storage unit.
Yeah.
God, there must be 100 bikes in there, in boxes and out of boxes, and some
Mm.
of these like pristine examples of Schwinn bicycles, like from back in the day with the stick shift on the top bar and tall
Yeah.
bars and the sissy bar and banana seat and all that stuff. So that's kind of cool because that's like the stuff when I was a kid that I wanted, but we couldn't afford Schwinn bikes. We had to get some other bikes, but those were the badass machines that all the kids wanted.
Yeah.
So I get one of those in turn for in addition to pay for these commissions. So
Great.
it's been slow coming, but I
Yeah.
think I finally had a couple breakthroughs and I'm ready to move on it. And having not having a workspace has been a little bit of a problem, but I cleared some space out of the garage,
Yep.
so
Yeah.
get to work on that. So that's kind of another thing that I'd like to do more work on, but I only have so much in the day.
Yeah. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's those three things hot on the horizon: making a piece of art for the exhibition, the Pearl Snaps exhibition, and running the conference, organizing it, executing, and then working on these four-piece commission.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah,
lot. That's full life.
well, sure is.
Yeah.
And we're going to do a bathroom remodel.
Oh, of course. Just throw that on top.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, it's important too. Yeah. We've got some house stuff that we'll get to it. It'll
yeah,
happen. Maybe when it gets cooler though, because sometimes working on remodels when it's hot and anyways.
yeah.
Um,
You don't want the dirt just sticking to you because you
yeah.
can.
I mean, if it's iron and I'm making a sand mold, then that's okay. But like, even just like getting materials from Home Depot or Lowe's or something and having to like get it on the back of the truck and then you're like, ugh,
Mhm.
why can't we be doing this in November when I'm
Yeah,
like hoodie? But
right.
so I think that it's one of my favorite parts of the episode, which is if you have any advice for us, I'd love to hear it.
Well, I've been thinking about it. Be kind. That's the first one.
Yeah.
Kind of goes along with some printed words from the great Jack Ron in this document that was issued at the international conference, the warmest regards pamphlet,
Yes.
letters to a young caster, where he says, "Just don't be a dick."
Yeah.
And
Yeah, he does say that.
so there, I can't beat that.
Yeah.
That is like the way you should go through your life. Just don't be a dick,
Yeah.
and I think everything is going to be okay.
Yeah. And we should try and get some of those. So we should do a little plug. So that's it was organized by Stacy Holloway, and I think Margie Levine was one of the editors
Yeah,
and also like had a big part of it, and maybe we should try and I'll contact Stacy Holloway and see if I can, I don't know, get some out to the conference or something so they can be available to participants for purchase,
yeah, that'd be great. That'd
but
be great. People
yeah.
would appreciate them.
Because I have one. I have mine in like a Ziploc bag because because
For
you know,
posterity.
yeah, or just like archival. I don't know,
Yeah,
but yeah.
yeah. Leave the soil better than you found it.
Mm,
One, I guess those three things,
yeah, it's good.
and not being a dick kind of covers the other two.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's good. It's good advice.
Yeah.
Just keep it
Thank you,
in
Jack.
mind. Yeah, I know he's another one that's on the list. There's so many. Sometimes people will ask me, it's actually really funny. It's always people that are not iron casters, but I think that, so I have a great community support system of people that are not artists and are not iron casters, and they'll say, and they know that I do this podcast because I'll say at work, I'll say, "Oh, I have an interview for the podcast." Because you can't just say I have an interview because then they think it's a job interview, which is fine.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I have an interview for the podcast. I have a podcast interview on Saturday. And this is like just in my speech patterns and stuff. And people will say, "Oh, you're still doing that? You
Hmm.
haven't run out of people yet?" And
Wow.
it's like, no, I'm not. I'm not going to run out of people because also they're still being generated. You know what I mean? Like
That's right.
I'm trying to catch, like I'm trying to catch if somebody like you are hosting the conference, the Western Conference. So we're trying to, kind of create some more excitement about it and just like knowledge about it. So maybe people would feel comfortable, like they know enough about it that they would invest in coming. But
Right.
also then, the old guard.
Hmm.
So I'm trying to catch what I can. And
Well,
um
I have to tell you, it's quite a roster of
I know.
people that you have already interviewed. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
there are people I don't know on the list that I feel like I should know and that I want to get to know. So it's a nice, it's a different form of what Gabe Akagawa did with the Foundry Tree.
Yeah.
You're doing the same thing, but in a different way.
Yeah.
You're linking these people together as the iron community, and I think it's a great service that you do. It's a great service that Gabe did for
Yes.
you know
And he's still doing it. I know that, everybody's life, there's seasons of busy, he's got kids that are, I think they're not young anymore. I think that they're adolescents, and so
yeah,
who knows. And because I'm in and out of touch with him because our projects kind of are very similar and overlap, and
mhm,
we had been in talks of trying to interview him, and then everything is busy, and then I kind of refocused to try and get George, Wayne, these
sure,
these kind of staples, and
right,
um, but he's still, I think, doing it, accepting photos now. I think you can maybe submit
right,
a kind of like, there's still a standard,
mhm,
but
yeah,
because I think eventually we want to try and link it so that if you go to his website, maybe they would be able to find the interview. Like maybe the interview link would be on
mhm,
that person's
yeah,
page or some sort of something like that. But we've got time,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you know,
There's no rush.
there's no rush. We're just doing the best we can with what we got,
That's
and
it.
trusting that that's good enough. And that's how I sleep at night.
Yeah,
So
so far so good.
thank you so
Sure.
much. All
Yeah.
right, so let's I think we're gonna go on over to the after show, unless there's
Okay.
anything else you wanna. No. No?
No, I think well, there is one thing, I guess.
Yeah.
You were talking about the experience you had at the Western in Hayes, Kansas.
Yeah.
Uh, we were tickled to be able to get Tom Geip, Cliff Prokoff, Wayne, and Butch Jack all in the same room. So it was quite a quite a thing.
Yeah.
And I remember I was doing the introductions. I was in charge of the panels that conference, and so Butch comes up and he says, "I want you to introduce me as a fraud and a charlatan." And you know
Yeah.
how he looked through my eyes into the back of my head when he said it, and he's like, that's what I want you to do, and I couldn't do it. And so afterwards, he was like, "Why didn't you do what I told you?" He's admonishing me, and I was like, I couldn't bring myself to do it, man. You're a thoughtful, creative guy. What do you mean you're a fraud and a charlatan? You know, he's like, "Well, here's why, because I was smart enough to surround myself with all these great people."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Thanks for adding that. I think it's important that that be on the record. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Except, if it wasn't so crackly, but yeah, it was good. A fraud and a charlatan. He was smart enough to surround himself with good people,
Mhm.
and they kind of helped create the image that he had.
Yeah.
And I see that in myself. Um, so maybe one day I'll have somebody introduce me like that.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. R.I.P. Jack.
Yeah. Amen. We're all missing him.
Yeah. Well, let's
Yeah.
move on to the after.
Yeah, let's go on over to the after show. All right. So, everybody who is listening and watching, thank you so much for tuning in. Tom, officially for the public version, I just wanted to say thank you so much for this wonderful interview and for spending so much time recounting your journey. It's been like an honor to hear the whole story, but also just like a pleasure to relive these experiences with you. So, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's been my great pleasure to be the subject of an interview.
Yeah. And it was about time. So,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. And I mean, I honestly, I think we should just go on over to sometimes I'll be like, oh, let's tease what we're going to talk about. But I honestly, I'm fried. So we'll figure it out when we get over there. Okay.
Sure.
All right. So, all right, everybody. And so if you want to come on over to the after show, you know what to do because I talk about it at the beginning of the show and the after show. But if you know what want to come in on this conversation, go over to Patreon. All right, thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next one.
Peace and love, brothers and sisters.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. This conversation doesn't have to end here. To gain access to the after show where Tom and I continue our discussion, visit the website patreon.com/thepodcastiron. And for as little as $1 a month, supporters can get access to the after show recordings from every episode that's ever been published. So if you're new here, the after show is just an extra 15 to 20 minutes. Sometimes, like honestly, most of them are an hour long. I'm going to be completely honest, but not all of them. Most of them. So it's just a couple extra minutes, sometimes an hour, with each show's guest where we talk a little more candidly and share at least one more story behind the privacy of a paywall. So, yes, if you sign up to Patreon now at any level of contribution, you will get access to listen to the after show from this episode and also from all of the other earlier episodes. I think it's like 50 other episodes. So even $1 really will make a difference to help subsidize the cost that I undertake to make this podcast publicly available, to pay for the hosting and everything. And you will get the private after shows. So it's a win for everyone. And additionally, this just in, starting this month, all after shows will be available to the public as a one-time purchase. So if you are not currently a paying Patreon member, but you want to purchase the after show to hear what we talk about for today's episode, and today's episode only, you can. And also what this means is you can purchase any of the past after shows if you want to see an after show with a specific person, say a heavy hitter like Coral Lambert or Wayne Potratz. And so you can purchase any one after show episode, either the audio version or the video version for only $5. For right now, I'm just going to put them at $5 and see how it goes over. But It's a brand new Patreon feature, so I don't know exactly all of the nuances of it, but I believe that you'll have access to that post that you purchase forever. It's not like you pay one time and you watch it one time. You pay $5 once, and I think you can listen or watch the episode as many times as you want. And so that's a new and exciting development that's just come down the pipeline to make after shows more attainable. So in conclusion of this public portion of the episode, I hope that you enjoyed listening to this interview as much as I enjoyed learning about Tom's life, art, and also the insider information about the upcoming Western Conference. I had such a great time chatting with Tom and being honestly inspired by his journey this far. Tom, thank you so much for this conversation. It was extremely rewarding for me to learn about the path your life has taken, but also it was an interesting full circle moment, as you brought up at the very beginning of the interview, that this was our second go around for an interview type thing. So then for me to see how far that I've come in just these few short years, and also then seeing where you've gone and where you are in your career and how much you've accomplished in your years up until this point, like, man, it made me really excited to see what the future years have in store for you, but also for me, if that makes any sense. So thank you. And now I just want to do one more quick thank you to the top supporters of this episode for helping me to continue offering the show. So thank you to the Western Cast Iron Art Alliance for being a top supporter of the show. And I'm so honored and encouraged to have your support. Thank you for everything that you do in service of the Western region of the U.S. and its cast iron artists. Thank you to the Mid-South Sculpture Alliance for your support of this episode, as well as your elevation of the field of sculpture and your support of individual sculptors by providing networking, education, and exhibition opportunities. Thank you, Sloss Metal Arts, for being a top supporter and also for your year-round work as a national center for iron casting and metal arts, and for offering our community visiting artist and resident artist opportunities, as well as hosting our national conference. Thank you to the Metal Museum for your support of this podcast and for offering our cast iron art community such amazing exhibition and learning opportunities, as well as foundry apprenticeships. In my opinion, the Metal Museum is one of the premier places in the world to learn the art of iron casting, and to have a museum of that caliber exhibitioning works by artists in our tribe, it is such a great honor and a gift. So yes, in closing, thank you to all of our individual supporters on Patreon. The funds that everyone there contribute are invaluable to help me to continue offering this show. And so if you don't have it in your budget to support the podcast Iron on Patreon, I understand. Instead, if you could please share this podcast with someone you think would be interested in listening or watching, and I will appreciate that just as much. Anything and everything helps, and for that I say, thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you want to get in touch with me, you can email me at thepodcastiron@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening and watching. I'm sending you all my love always, and I can't wait to share the next episode with you. I'll talk to you soon, and have a great day.